No, I don't see a path forward where we're going to see massive reductions in debt levels, consumer debt levels, not without some either policy interventions or massive other shifts. And it won't be a shift in consumer culture as a whole or mindset. Maybe Gen Z, God bless them, because I love them, they have a different mindset. And a lot of them are like, I don't want any credit cards. They've seen their millennial older siblings, cousins, their Gen X parents and others get burned by using too much credit. So for years, I was looking at the data and again, obviously seeing numbers continue to increase. And the reason that I'm not optimistic, and I'm just being candid here, a huge part of what happens in the financial services industry is innovation and more complex or derivative type of products as innovations to supply access to credit and loans of various kinds. And so when you find that now you have, as I mentioned, buy now, pay later, look at how quickly in the last 7 years or so, we've hit the hundreds of billions of dollars in outstanding loans just on that in the last decade type of debt or credit. But increasingly people are using buy now, pay later as a quasi type of loan or credit card like by rolling it over and extending what would have been a couple months to pay something off. They're taking advantage of the issuers to be willing to say, we'll stretch this out for you, which reminds me a little bit of like the payday lenders. I hate to say it, but that's honestly where it is. I think that we'll continue to see innovations and new types of ways for people to borrow.
Hello, everyone. I am Harlan Landes. I'm the founder of the Plutus Foundation and the Plutus Awards. Also started a personal finance website back a long time ago called Consumerism Commentary, which I did sell. And I'm financially independent now, and I'm excited to give back to the financial content creator and professional community. And one of the guests that we have for our Impact Summit this year, I'm so excited about. And this is someone who's going to be leading an entire session at the Impact Summit. It's someone who I've admired for a long time, which I'll get into in a little bit. But I'm super excited to welcome Lynnette Khalfani-Cox. Thank you for being here, Lynnette. I am excited to have you because I remember back when I was first thinking about the terrible financial situation that I got myself in, and I started looking for people online who were talking about how to get out of debt, how to fix your financial situation, how to get on good footing. And among everything that I had seen at the time, your name popped up all the time on different news websites, different magazines and newspapers, just everything related to personal finance. You were there, you were everywhere. And this is back in the early 2000s. And that was the time that I ended up starting my website about getting myself out of debt, putting my net worth out there. But you have been in this space for, in internet terms, it's like a generation at least.
It feels like dog years, right? It's like, I don't know, it's been a while.
Oh yeah, please tell me how you got started writing and thinking about money and personal finance.
First, thank you for having me, Arlen, on the show. But when I really look back at the trajectory, it has been 2+ decades. And so my husband might say, don't date yourself. Don't say how long it's been. But I stumbled into what I was doing back then just because I came from the world of journalism and of financial journalism in particular. So I had been writing and talking to different audiences about personal finances. I was a reporter for a couple of places you might have heard about. I was a Wall Street Journal reporter. I worked with Dow Jones. I was a deputy managing editor. I was a CNBC correspondent. So I was always talking about money topics and personal finances to the audiences that I was serving. But honestly, at the beginning, I was like a total hot mess, right? Like I just really did not have my own stuff together at all. In fact, I was quite surprised when they first hired me at Dow Jones. I had an editor, Rick Stein, who I always like give a lot of kudos and thanks to, because when he hired me, I had first been working as a reporter at the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I was working at Fox, the 10 o'clock news in Philadelphia. I went to a job conference at Newsday in New York, and that's where I met Rick and some other folks from Dow Jones. But long story short, He really liked me. He liked my clips and my storytelling and the stuff that I did. And he said, "Oh, you can really tell a story." And he said, "I want you to cover our most high profile beat. I want you to write about Wall Street." And I was like, "Yes, great. Thank you." He made me an offer and we negotiated. We went back and forth for many weeks actually on the negotiations. But anyway, I accepted. And then I told Rick, I said, just a little thing, just make sure you do recognize that I don't really exactly know a stock from a bond. I couldn't tell you the first thing about Wall Street and about anything about finances. And he goes, "Don't worry about that. He said, anybody can learn that." He said, "It doesn't matter." He said, "I like the fact that you can tell a story. You know how to write very well. You clearly know how to source." He had looked at my clips and everything. And he was right. Of course, I did learn. I started interviewing traders and stockbrokers and CFPs and money managers. And I would just always ask them, what's working? What are you telling your clients to do? How are they making money? What mistakes are they making? That kind of thing. I went from journalism, as a general assignment reporter, then to a more specific area as a personal finance journalist, as a reporter and as an editor, as a bureau chief, etc. Won a couple of awards and did some good things on that. And then started my own company, started this business that we have now, themoneycoach.net, in March of 2003. It will be 23 years this year, and it's been going like gangbusters, and I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah, wow. And along the way, you've published 15 books. Is that right?
16, but who's counting?
Yeah, wow. That is great. Plutus Impact Summit is going to be full of people, not just the leaders who are leading all the sessions and the speakers have been working on problems like this over the last few years, especially since COVID, as the landscape has changed quite a bit. And you're going to be able to work in masterminds with people and have workshops and dig into these problems, especially if you're a financial coach and you're looking for people to help. If you're a financial advisor and you want to help people manage their money, this is going to give you the skills that you need to get in front of the people and make sure that they are listening to you. Sign up at plutosimpact.com and you'll start this journey to the Impact Summit right now with tips and resources and everything you need to really make a difference in someone's life, including your own. Is there something, what did you learn along the way in terms of first starting off talking to doing the Wall Street beat? How did that inform what your opinion about financial management, personal finance? How did you bridge the gap there?
I guess one of the key things that I saw, and again, it was the era that I was in at the time that the markets were in, I was seeing people make a lot of mistakes, a lot of very costly mistakes. And in fact, my first book was aptly named. It was called Investing Success: How to Conquer 30 Costly Mistakes and Multiply Your Wealth. And that was because at the time, this was the dot-com bubble, remember, that had happened and then it burst. And so many people were like, "Oh, my 401k looks like a 201k," or "This isn't working for me anymore." So I got Charles Schwab to write the foreword to the book. The book did well. But honestly, I met my husband Earl around that time. And he told me, after he met me after a conference, after a book expo, and he said, "Oh, this is great. You have this book about investing. Great. Investing, schmashting." Everybody's sick of investing because everybody's losing money right now. He said, "You should write a book about debt." He said, "Write about getting out of debt or something about debt." He said, "Because everybody in this country has debt. And if you write a book about that, it'll be a New York Times bestseller." And I was thinking, ooh, if this man only knew. And this was like the first day that he met me. And he was a publisher and an agent and a book agent. I was talking to him via referral. At the time, I was in the middle of paying off my own $100,000 in credit card debt. And I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe there's something there. Maybe I should write this book. So I did. I literally wrote Zero Debt in like less than 90 days. It just poured out of me because I had lived that story of being in debt and of paying off the debt and of knowing the strategies that worked. Not academic ivory tower wisdom or theoretical, but nuts and bolts, practical stuff that was real life. And so I did write this book called Zero Debt: The Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom after Investing Success. And it did become a New York Times bestseller. And here we are 2 decades later. We went through the third edition of Zero Debt because unfortunately the debt problem in America has only gotten worse. We're up to 1.2 trillion in credit card debt alone right now. So not to mention all the buy now, pay later, the mortgage loans, the student loans, the auto loans. And we're seeing unfortunately, a lot of deterioration in terms of just people's well-being. Delinquencies are up, et cetera. And so we still haven't gotten a hold on that. And 70% of the US economy is powered by borrowing, by debt. So I think the cat that, I don't know what's the right expression, that horse is out the barn. And I
Yeah.
don't ever want to get it back fully. But I talked a lot. I talked about my own circumstances. And I just up and said, oh, look, I had all this ridiculous amount of debt. And it was ridiculous at the time. I had a six-figure salary. I was doing well, but I was just in that cycle. Okay, I'm paying my bills on time. I'm not late on anything. Nobody's calling me. Great. What's the problem? Even though I'm only making minimum payments, what's the problem? The problem was I was sapping my cash flow. I was having stress about the rising debt load, making me feel anxious. And it was hampering my ability to do other things. So I was glad when I paid it all off in 3 years. I never missed a single payment. And then like I said, I wrote that book. I just took off.
Do you see, speaking of consumer debt, do you see a path towards a future where consumer debt is greatly reduced on a scale across the country? Is there a path for us that's going to take us there, or are we just chipping away at it bit by bit, person by person?
That's a great question, Harlan. And the honest answer is no, I don't see a path forward where we're going to see massive reductions in debt levels, consumer debt levels, not without some either policy interventions or massive other shifts. And it won't be a shift in consumer culture as a whole or mindset. Maybe Gen Z, God bless them, because I love them. They have a different mindset. And a lot of them are like, I don't want any credit cards. They've seen their millennial older siblings, cousins, their Gen X parents, and others get burned by using too much credit or by having loans of various kinds, whether that's student loan debt, big car notes, certainly credit card debt, et cetera. So for years, I was looking at the data and again, obviously seeing numbers continue to increase. And the reason that I'm not optimistic, and I'm just being candid here, the reason that I'm not optimistic is that a huge part of what happens in the financial services industry is innovation and more complex or derivative type of products as innovations to supply access to credit and loans of various kinds. And so when you find that now you have, as I mentioned, BNPL, buy now, pay later, for example, look at how quickly in the last 7 years or so, we've hit the hundreds of billions of dollars in outstanding loans just on that in the last decade type of debt or credit. But increasingly, people are using buy now, pay later as a quasi type of loan or credit card like by rolling it over and extending what would have been a couple months to pay something off. They're taking advantage of the issuers to be willing to say, we'll stretch this out for you, which reminds me a little bit of like the payday lenders. I hate to say it, but that's honestly where it is. So, anyway, outside of just credit card debt as a form of consumer debt, I think that we'll continue to see innovations and new types of ways for people to borrow. We went through the P2P phase, of course, you remember peer-to-peer loans and all of that. And so it's just a function of, I don't know, maybe being in a consumer-driven culture. And there is true need. And I do think that we should promote healthy and responsible access to credit for different means. Some people need loans to be able to finance higher education. Some people obviously need a loan to be able to buy a home. So it won't be innovation just at the credit card level. And we'll see this in the mortgage industry. And I hope it's not like the 50-year loan or whatever, but that's a whole other story. It's okay.
Yeah.
Rent for your life. But that's one of the reasons that I'm not hopeful that the borrowing tide is going to go the other direction.
How much do you think, as financial coaches, financial advisors, financial content creators, how much should we be talking about some of these larger issues that seem beyond our control as individuals versus helping people with the things that they can do today?
I feel like it's a huge part of our responsibility to not only help people to be grounded in what is within their control, which I think it should be a huge part of the focus and the areas around which we all coalesce and agree and say, let's help people one on one, family members, communities, etc. But I do feel that we should also be talking about policy that affects people's pocketbooks. I think that we should talk about systemic factors that influence the economic environment in which we all live. And I think that it's maybe naive is the word, or misguided to act as if we don't live in a larger society, in a larger structure that impacts people's ability to get ahead in many ways, whether that's a conversation around why we need childcare in this country. Because, okay, if a working parent, mom or dad, has a toddler at home or a child in school that's school age, that's 9 years old in the fourth grade or whatever, but they don't have any a means to be able to either pay for a babysitter or after school care or something, how are they expected to stay at work and to bring the money to put food on the table? I think it's important that we talk about ageism and the fact that once people get to a certain age, whether that's 50 plus or another age, that increasingly their economic opportunities start to dwindle. I think it's important that we talk about LGBTQ rights and whether or not we want to live in a society where, after people make a choice about who they live and love and live with or love or choose to marry, does that mean they get disenfranchised in some ways? I think it's important to talk about race, about gender issues. So my personal thinking is that at my level, in terms of what the issues that I talk about or write about, speak about, etc., I prefer not to go like deep into the politics per se. It's not my quote unquote lane, so to speak, but it's absolutely my lane to give my audience informed opinion, to give insights and analysis and perspective when policy, legislation, the larger environment in any way impacts their ability to manage money wisely, to save, to invest, to get ahead. Because otherwise, I feel like I'm doing my audience a disservice.
Sure. And I think the fact that these are things that you do talk about, and on top of the books that you've written and your data focused writing and the outlets that you've appeared upon, the business that you've started, these are all things that have contributed to your ability to gain your audiences and the world's trust. What would you attribute to the trust that you've built, and how do you build that trust across different generations now? Are different people looking for different things?
I do find that different age groups in particular are looking for different things. So I'm a Gen Xer, but I speak with, I hope, authority and credibility to millennial audiences, just like I do to baby boomer audiences. And even to Gen Zs, because I happen to have Gen Zers of my own, my three kids, we're all in their 20s. But I think overall, the way that you engender trust with an audience is by doing the work, by putting in the time and the care to show that you care, to demonstrate care, to not be like a one and done type of person, to not simply exist, even especially as content creators, to say, oh, I'm just gonna let me see how many clicks, likes, eyeballs, dollars I can generate from these people. It's, are you really trying to serve them? It's February and it's Black History Month. And I'm reminded of Martin Luther King Jr., who said, everybody can be great because everybody can serve. And so at some level, I don't want to say, oh my God, I'm so great. But I do want to say that I think my audience has felt well served by me over the years. And I think that the influencers, the content creators, the personal finance professionals in my sphere of influence and in the network that my husband and I founded, the Financial Influencer Network, they understand mostly often at a personal level how much I've served them, because for 20 plus years, that's been my model. It's give without the expectation of getting. It's try to help somebody else. It's maybe I have my Christian mama to thank for that, to the whole golden rule kind of thing. Treat people well, treat them how you would want to be treated. And so I've always had that philosophy to try to give back, to try to look for ways to support and to help without expectation. Just give because it's the right thing to do. And honestly, a lot of times it doesn't cost you anything. So that's what I would say. I think it's about trust building based on presence, on being there, on giving, on serving, and oftentimes on alignment, often just being in the same kind of set of values around what it means to be a good operator in any space.
Yeah, I really relate to that, especially as you're talking about the golden rule. That's something that my family we grew up with as well. So, yeah, and it's basically if you reduce it to that's why I ended up doing what I'm doing.
For sure.
My mother, when I was, I don't know, probably younger than 10 or probably around 10, she said, "What would you do if you had $1 million?"
Mm.
Okay, maybe not 10. Maybe I was a little older thinking about how I answered it, but I said, "Oh, I would start a foundation." I don't
Wow.
know why I said that. I don't know what inspired me, but I wanted to give back. I really loved a lot of things that I was involved with, mainly the arts. This is long before I started figuring out I needed to think about money. But yeah, that has always been an important part of my life. And I was like, I'm going to give back in that way. And I found ways to do that. And of course, I found ways to give back through the Plutus Foundation as well. You mentioned the Financial Influencer Network that you started with your husband, Earl, and I would love to know more about that. What was the need that you saw out there that you could fill with this network?
We launched the Financial Influencer Network in last August of 2025, and it's been growing quickly. We started with 26 experts, handpicked personally by me, vetted, curated list of professionals who were all operating at what I consider an extremely high level in terms of service to their audience, their own knowledge, skills, and proficiency in their respective areas of money management and personal finance. And the reason we wanted to do it was like threefold. One is we wanted to create win 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 opportunities. And by that, I mean, we wanted to better service our audience as content creators individually and our audience collectively within Fin members. So we figured, wow, we have some great people who can start here, whether that's Mandy Woodruff Santos, who has her podcast, or somebody like Marsha Barnes, who has the finance bar in her audience in her community. What if we amplified the work that they're doing and let their audiences know about each other more? Or what if we took people like and Jackie Cummings Koski, their co-hosts of Catching Up to Fi, their content circles centers around financial independence, retire early, and getting with late starters who feel like, oh my gosh, I haven't saved enough money for retirement. What if we put their audience in front of some other audiences, maybe Patrice Washington, who has a long-standing podcast, also 20 million downloads, etc. So we were thinking about creative ways to cross-pollinate and to share audiences and to leverage that. And what would that do? For one, it would better serve our audiences, right? It would mean that some people would go, wow, I've never listened to this person before. And now I'm exposed to a new financial expert, a new financial influencer that I didn't know about. So those audiences would be better served. Secondly, we thought that for the content creators themselves, it provided leverage points. It would allow them to also pick up followers, to pick up opportunities to spread the word about their own areas of expertise to people who hadn't heard them before, and also to allow that cross pollination in a way that otherwise really wouldn't have happened. And that's because of how the Fin model works. And I'll share that in a minute. But the third area, in terms of a win, we thought would be for the brand partners that we align with. So, Fin experts are hired by brands who want to amplify their messaging around something financial related. It might be a product, a service, an app, a tool, a financial initiative, a financial literacy campaign. And when they find a right match with an expert who speaks to that topic and whose audience is a good fit, then we do brand deals. But for the brands, it's, oh, wow, this is a great win as well, because not only do I get this trusted expert who's a partner and can voice some of the messaging that we're trying to articulate, but if I hire one expert in Fin, I get the entire network at the same time. And that's because Fin does something fundamentally different than every other influencer network out there. And that's that we subscribe to the philosophy that a rising tide lifts all boats. And so we amplify one another's content, and we do that free of charge. So we're not telling a brand, oh, you have to pay. If somebody posts something on their Instagram or on their LinkedIn or on their Facebook or Twitter/X, etc. And then another content creator with 50,000 followers, with 500,000 followers, with 3 million followers, because we do have a collective reach of 10 million. If another mega influencer, a micro or a nano influencer engages with that content, shares it, likes it, reposts it, tells their audience about it, that's a win for the brand, right? Especially because they would normally have to pay for that kind of additional social media and sharing and whatnot. So we know that when we create opportunities for all three to win, for audiences, the content creators, and the brands to win, then we're like, great, we'll do those deals all day long. But again, we also wanted to provide cohesion. We wanted to provide an opportunity to not work in silos. We wanted to provide partnership and intra network opportunities, and we're fulfilling all of those goals.
Yeah, I was going to say, how's it working so far?
So far, so good. We're off to the races with multiple campaigns, and our experts have not only been getting paid by brands, but intra network. They're just doing so many amazing things. And it's just, I can't even tell you how much for Earl and myself. Of course, we like for everybody to get paid and we want to keep that going. But the intra network support and what we're doing is just, that's to me is the next level stuff. A case in point, one of our experts, Trey Bodge. Trey has done like maybe 1,000 TV hits. She does a lot of maybe 10,000. I don't know, some crazy number of probably that number of satellite media tours. She has a huge number of brand deals. She's a smart shopping and a retail expert on TV all the time. Unfortunately, Trey lost her mom a couple of years ago, and her mom was an entrepreneur and worked up like almost shortly until her passing. And I believe she died in her 80s. Long story short, Trey and her family started a foundation to honor her mom's legacy as a late in life entrepreneur. And they're giving away money, $15,000 to grants to other entrepreneurs who are age 45 and older. Trey went on a couple of other podcasts within the Financial Influencer Network. She went on Melinda Emerson's podcast. Melinda is known as the small business lady. She has an audience of about 1 million social followers, etc. Anyway, Trey was expecting to get 50 applications or something for her grant, and she got something like 450. It's a very good problem for her to have, and so she was happy about that. But Andy Wang, he's the host of Inspired Money. He's the head of Runnymede Capital. He's had a number of other Fin experts on his show and whatnot. I was just talking with Jason Steele, who's a credit card and travel expert, and he has a book about how to travel for free. And I was just like, oh, wait, we have to make sure that you're on everybody's podcast within Fin because the network, we do support like that. So it's just stuff like that just makes me feel good also that I feel like this will be part of our legacy and part of our impact to let people show that this model can work, that we don't have to compete. We collaborate. We support one another. We lift each other up. And that's a great thing to see.
Great. And that's so aligned with what we're doing at the Plutus Impact Summit, which you're going to be a leader at May 6th through 8th in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I think you're preparing to talk about the wow and how of building a millionaire network. I would love to, I know from talking to you that Earl is the how and you are the wow, but tell me more about the how and the wow of building a millionaire network.
You said it. One day we had a TV station that came to our house. This is when we lived in New Jersey. The guy came, who was the kind of lead videographer, but he sat down afterwards. We did a great interview. He sat down, literally had a beer with my husband. He doesn't drink anymore, but he sat down then and had a beer. And he said, oh, Earl, I get it. Because he understood our roles. And he said, so Lynnette, you're the wow. And Earl, you're the how. He said, Earl, you keep the trains on the tracks. You do all the behind the scenes stuff you do, because he knew my face and knew me front and center as the brand sort of representation, the money coach for our company, themoneycoach.net. But overall, part of how we've built our network, our business for the past 22 plus years, it really has been about connection. It really has been about the importance of relationships, whether it's with our clients. Many of our corporate clients are return clients. They come back to us year after year. And you don't get that kind of repeat business by just one-offs or not following through or being inconsistent in terms of performance or return and value that you're offering to a client. But even outside of that, just like relationships within the industry, Patricia Roberts, who's a 529 expert, she's in Fin, and she was on Farnoosh Tarabi's podcast, So Money, recently, and she texted me. We have our own internal our service we use called Market, and we text one another. Long story short, Patricia told me about her being on Bush's show again. I was saying congratulations. I had just so happened to get an email from Farnoosh, or just being on her newsletter. I complimented her in the newsletter and said, "Oh, this was great, good advice that you gave people." And just a quick note, because I've known Farnoosh for many years. Farnoosh goes, "Oh, hey, Lynnette, you want to come on So Money? I want you to come back on." I do that with her. But again, it's relationships. Farnoosh has known me for so many years. And so the success, the brand building, what we call virtual Lynnette. You said at the very top that when you first started way back 20 years ago, looking around and seeing who was writing or talking about getting out of debt, Earl was very strategic in creating opportunities for me through a strategy that he called virtual Lynnette. And by that, he meant he wanted me to be ubiquitous. He wanted me to be seen everywhere. So when I left my job as a Wall Street Journal reporter for CNBC, and I was on air at CNBC, I actually left via a downsizing. It was me and about 200 other people that got let go. One of the earlier waves of downsizing in the media, and you see it like left and right these days.
Yeah.
But I had an opportunity, I had an offer to go to CNN and whatnot. But I was like, nope, I don't want to. One layoff is all I need in my life. I don't want to work for anybody else. It's time for me to start my own company. And that's what I did. But the idea was that since I wasn't going to work for another major network, he was like, let's make sure that you're everywhere, that you're on Fox, you're on ABC, you're on CBS, you're on CNN. And so that was the strategy. So that's why you saw me on so many different TV shows and on so many magazines and on different online outlets, et cetera. It was by design to be visible, to be everywhere. When I wrote the book called The Money Coach's Guide to Your First Million, we published that with McGraw-Hill. I wound up getting on Oprah with that book, et cetera. Well, the CEO of Chase's consumer finance division at the time, who's now the CEO of TIAA, her name is Deshunda Duckett-Brown, she saw me on the cover of the book as she was whisking through the airport one day because the book was faced out, not like spine out. And she looked, she was like, who is this woman on the cover of the book? And then she had her people. She was like, oh, reach out to her. Find out this person. And she flips through the book and looks at it. I end up doing many years worth of deals with Chase they were a client of mine. And again, I'm just saying that visibility absolutely matters. And we talk about this concept of having social proof, right? In social media. But I grew up in the era mostly of traditional media, again, because of my background in the world of traditional media. And that's still honestly my strength. I still feel I'm way stronger for traditional media than social media. I absolutely do social media, but it's dare I say, the more low-hanging fruit, honestly, for me, is I can get on national TV in a heartbeat. I can get on regional TV. Because now all the producers know me. They trust me. They've seen me so many times over the years and whatnot. So it's the relationships. It's knowing the right people. Tiffany often says, she'll say, oh, my mentor, Lynnette, and she'll tell people the story of how she and I first met through an event with Prudential, and I was a spokesperson for Prudential and did some things with them. But we were coming back from New York, New Jersey, and I met her. I liked her a lot. I saw she was very sharp. I gave her a ride home to New Jersey. We both lived in New Jersey at the time. And I was just kind of like pouring into her. This was the first time I had met her. And she was like, wow. She was like, but she told me what her aspirations were. And I questioned her a lot, and I knew her background and her heart for wanting to teach people about money and personal finance. And the bottom line is, she said, oh, I want to do TV. I want to do some more of this. And I was like, fine, let's make it happen. Let's get it done. So I was like, here, I have a thing to go on Pix, but instead of me going on Pix 11 News, why don't you go? I'll email the producer and let them. And she was like, wait, what? You would do that for me? And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, why not? So I did. I was like, here. And then she got on TV just like that. And I was like, let me give you some media training too. Let me make sure you'll be great. And she was, of course.
And you're talking about Tiffany Elie, of course.
Yes, Tiffany the Budgetnista. Yeah, everybody should know Tiffany. They should know her by first name. Just Share or something. Or just use a first name. But it's the idea is that just do right by people, nurture relationships. And I can't always say that I've been perfect at it, but I've really tried to engage people in a way to help and to support. And I think that's been a huge part of growing our net worth, growing our business, and certainly now in scaling our business as well.
If you come to the Plutus Impact Summit this year, you are going to meet people who change your life and your business in ways that you can't even imagine today. Any goals that you have, you're going to be able to really solidify, and the steps that you need to take to reach those goals, whether it's with your business or with your own finances, you're going to get that insight and that impact at the Plutus Impact Summit this year. The Plutus Impact Summit is May 6th through 8th in Charlotte, North Carolina, and you should be there. Tickets are available at plutisimpact.com. Sign up there, and you'll also be able to join our community of financial professionals and content creators at Plutus CNX. Yeah, and as you go into the Impact Summit talking about this, what have you seen change over the last 5 years, even post-COVID, as people are on this path and they're trying to do all that they can do to be everywhere?
Yes.
What are the changes that you've seen?
I think a couple of things. Obviously, one of the reasons for the Impact Summit and what you guys are doing at Plutus and what we'll all be doing there is we're talking about reaction to a huge shift in the market and what's happened, right? The fact that we have all this kind of AI swap that's out there. And one thing that's very different is that honestly, AI can write some halfway decent, say, financial articles or give some advice or whatever. We've had a big shift in obviously a huge amount of brands, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 have had traffic decimated, right? Algorithm changes with Google and all of that. Fewer people are clicking on links, so that affects monetization and ability to make money on that side for brands and content creators whose model was built upon that or tied to it. But one thing that hasn't changed, and one thing that AI cannot do, is to have that same kind of trust that content creators can have directly. Trust with the audiences that you serve, trust with your brand partners. So AI can't replace you on that. So I do think that it's going to be important as we're having these kind of conversations about what distinguishes us as content creators, about ways in which we can excel amidst change, whether that's technological change, industry level change, et cetera, or more. I do think it's important for us to be thoughtful about the ways in which we engage and how we engage and what we choose to do or not to do. So sometimes people just say yes and they take on things and they for the almighty dollar. But at this point, I think a lot of people, especially the audience that'll be at this year's Plutus Impact Summit, they are absolutely more seasoned, more professional. I would say the more of the creme de la creme, if I will, of financial content creators. And I do think that purpose, that impact, that intention, and really all those 6 I's that you guys have built the theme of the conference around, whether that's about interconnectivity or income, people are really thinking about these areas in a much more thoughtful way that's in alignment with their own brand, their own personal values, and the ways in which they want to serve their audience. So, yeah, I want to create good content. Yeah, I want to serve my audience, but I want to do it with integrity. I want to make sure that I preserve my voice. I want to make sure that I leave opportunity to learn and to not be so top down, if you will, to say I'm the all knowing expert and that you're not open to learning or getting feedback and understanding maybe how to do something different. And so that's part of what excites me about being at Plutus this year in particular. Obviously, in addition to being able to speak and to talk about partnerships and the importance of being connected to others and how that really helps you to grow, to scale, to learn, to nurture relationships and more. But also, it's important to say, hey, you know what? Maybe some things I've been doing, maybe I can do them a little differently. Maybe there is a reason for me to pivot or to open the lens a little bit wider and see from a different perspective. And so the learning, the creation, the ability to partner and to come out of events like the Plutus Impact Summit with way more than you came in with, that's a compelling reason for anybody to attend.
Yeah, and It's going to be an amazing event for people to attend. But what you're talking about right now is really interesting. Even as advisors, coaches, and content creators, we too need to be resilient. And that is what you've written about most recently in your latest book, Bounce Back, the ultimate guide to financial resilience. How does that play into all of these things that we need to know as financial professionals?
We are not removed from the same set of life circumstances, the same economic environment, the same forces that weigh upon the audiences that we're serving. We can be subjected to those same tremors in our life as well, right? So, what I talk about in Bounce Back is the ability to navigate through life circumstances that, frankly, are going to hit all of us at some point or another. And so I call them the dreaded D's because they all start with the letter D. So it's things like downsizing when you lose a job, divorce, death of a loved one, disability, disease. It's things like debt, damaged credit, what I call dollar deficits, meaning I'm broke, I have no cash flow, my savings isn't where it should be. And then even things like discrimination, which can also pack a powerful punch, not only emotionally, but from the standpoint of financially as well, right? So some content creators might get to a certain age, right? Where they feel like, oh, nobody's hiring me as much because I'm X age, or I'm not dancing on crates on TikTok or whatever. You know what? There's some ways that you can deal with that, and you can learn that's probably not where your audience is, and that's not where you're going to be aligned anyway, and that's okay. So the ability to bounce back and to navigate a variety of circumstances, it isn't just for the general public, it's for us, for professionals as well, to understand. And I talk about solutions and strategies. I profile different people who have gone through any number of them. And honestly, Harlan, I've been through 9 of the 10 dreaded T's in my life. And I've lived to tell the tale and not just survived, but thrived in the wake of those challenges. So I felt quite able to speak to this topic. But overall, I really wanted to give people a message of hope and of inspiration. I wanted them to know, and it's not just because somebody else did it, oh, you can do it too. It's about understanding the central sort of tenets, the strategies, the things that are proven to be more helpful when you need to recover from some kind of setback. What helps people navigate these challenges and get through them with greater ease, with more being more intact. And so we know one of the things, and I talk about this in Bounce Back, the first couple of chapters, in fact, there's no personal finance advice in there. And I said, I know you'd be going to be surprised to see a personal finance expert talking about other issues, but the grounding that was necessary required me to lay the groundwork and to explain to people, take care of your mental health. Make sure that you're looking after yourself physically and your own well-being. Establish a community or nurture the community and the relationships. Those are the things that will help you to successfully bounce back from whatever setback that you've experienced, whether you've lost a job, gone through a divorce, or something else. And Bounce Back explains that in greater context, along with the workbook, the Bounce Back workbook. So that's why when you said 15 books, I was like, really, it's 16 books because I did the book and the workbook.
That's great. What are you most looking forward to at the Impact Summit this year?
100% the connection and the people there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how well the community that you've built and that you've led in a very intentional and purposeful way grows and stands on its own. I really do commend you for taking this event, growing it, shaping it, and now I'm saying this is a standalone conference on its own, and that we're supporting our financial content creators in ways that we haven't done before. So I'm really looking forward to seeing, I like seeing innovation and I like seeing growth, right? And I think that you're going to have a mix of both. Earl and I laughed when we said, wow, we have a 22-year startup. That sounds like an oxymoron, right? But we've had our company, the moneycoach.net, for 2+ decades. And now that we launched Fin, the financial influencer network, we're like, wow, this is like being in startup mode now all over again. So that's where you are. You're at this intersection of having had a brand and a movement, really, Harlan, that for 15 years, you've put yourself out there, you've sacrificed a lot, you've been part of this huge rallying cry to support content creators, to recognize quality work, and to make a safe space for people to talk about the issues that they face and to improve. And so now, in addition to that legacy factor, you have the opportunity to innovate, to change, to restructure something new, and to listen, to get feedback from content creators at a high level and to see what they're saying their needs are. Because you may decide who knows what you'll come up with, but for sure, we're a vocal group, so we won't leave you hanging, that's for sure. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who will have their 2 cents to put in, and I would encourage you to listen. And that's a good sign of a leader, to listen and to learn just as much as you impart to others.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm super excited to learn from you and all of the other leaders and all of the attendees really who come to the Impact Summit. I think it's going to be a great meeting of thought leaders and just people who love to toss these topics around and figure out solutions. And and we're going to be there for it. Yeah, themoneycoach.net is where people can find you. Is there anything else you'd like to share about how people might be able to get in touch with you prior to the Impact Summit?
Sure. Certainly, they can reach me on the corporate site for the Financial Influencer Network, which is just financialinfluencernetwork.com. My personal site, LynnetteKhalfani-Cox.com. And then I'm on social pretty much everywhere: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, X, all of the things. And they're all under either The Money Coach or my full name, Lynnette Khalfani-Cox. And thank you so much again, Harlan. It was great talking with you. And like I said, I'm gonna look forward to seeing you in May. And I'm sure I'll see you virtually before then, but seeing you in person in May.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing you too. And thank you for your time today. Fantastic discussion. And we will talk soon. And for those watching, please go ahead and sign up for the Plutus Impact Summit, PlutusImpact.com, May 6th through 8th in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay.